When manipulation fails, they do this instead. Have you ever observed how some individuals alter their behavior toward you the moment you become less susceptible to their influence? Consider this. When individuals find it impossible to control you, they often don't simply walk away. Instead, they shift their tactics, employing strategies such as guilt-tripping, spreading falsehoods, and distorting your words to undermine your self-assurance. I'm referring to those subtle psychological games that can be difficult to detect at first. While you believe you're simply living your life, they are subtly attempting to regain control over you. Stoic philosophy emphasizes that true strength lies not in dominating others, but in resisting being dominated. But ponder this: are you truly autonomous, or are you still unconsciously reacting to their schemes? Perhaps it's time to liberate yourself definitively. Consider the following narrative to better grasp the wisdom contained here. Adam was an individual who forged his own path, never allowing others to dictate his choices. This independence made some uncomfortable. At his workplace, his superior couldn't intimidate him. In friendships, he resisted manipulation. Even within his family, he established boundaries that others found unsettling. He anticipated earning respect for this, but instead, an odd phenomenon occurred. People who once lauded him began to criticize him. Friends who once admired his confidence started labeling him as egotistical. Colleagues who previously relied on him began to propagate rumors. Perplexed and disheartened, Adam sought counsel from Mr. Carter, a seasoned businessman renowned for his insight. "Why is it," Adam inquired, "that when I resist being controlled, people turn against me?" Mr. Carter chuckled and guided Adam to his backyard where two horses stood, one tethered to a post, the other roaming freely. "Observe closely," Mr. Carter instructed. He approached the tethered horse, which remained calm. However, as he approached the free horse, it retreated warily. "Do you see?" Mr. Carter said. "People are similar. When they can restrain you, they feel secure. But when you are unrestrained, they become uneasy because they cannot predict or control you." Adam frowned. "So what do they do?" Mr. Carter sighed. "They don't attempt to liberate you. Instead, they try to undermine you. They'll label you as difficult, selfish, or arrogant. They'll twist your independence into something negative, not because you're in the wrong, but because your freedom reminds them of their own limitations." That evening, Adam finally comprehended that individuals weren't turning against him because he was flawed. They were turning against him because they couldn't control him. Consequently, he ceased justifying himself, ceased seeking approval, and ceased allowing guilt to dictate his decisions. In that silence, something remarkable happened. The manipulators withdrew. The weak-minded vanished. And the truly strong remained, because genuine strength respects strength. When individuals realize they cannot exert control over you, they often resort to manipulation. Some thrive on controlling others, seeking to dictate your actions, influence your decisions, and mold your behavior to suit their desires. However, when they encounter your independence and see that you don't yield easily, they adapt their approach. Instead of direct control, they employ subtle manipulation, exploiting your emotions to achieve their aims. When individuals find themselves unable to exert direct control over you, they often resort to indirect methods of influence, such as instilling feelings of culpability, duty, or coercion. The truth is, these are manipulative techniques. They might try to guilt-trip you, saying things like, "After all I've sacrificed, this is the gratitude I receive." Or they might use excessive praise, telling you, "You're exceptionally skilled at this. I'm lost without your help." If these fail, they may manufacture a sense of urgency or adopt a victim mentality, aiming to make you responsible for their emotional state. The underlying motive isn't genuine regard. It's about maintaining power over you subtly. This is where the wisdom of Stoicism becomes relevant. When people can't control you, they often resort to subtle tactics to break your confidence. But with Stoic wisdom, you can stay strong and unshaken. If you're finding value in this, take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss powerful insights like these. As Lao Tzu noted, "He who controls others may be powerful, but he who has mastered himself is mightier still." Self-mastery is essential. Real strength isn't about dominating others, but about governing oneself. Manipulators capitalize on emotional responses such as guilt, uncertainty, or apprehension. The instant you identify their strategies and choose not to engage, you neutralize their influence. Think of it as a chess match. Manipulation is akin to a chess game, with each move strategically designed to provoke a response. They set traps, anticipating your panic, hoping you'll play into their scheme. But what happens if you remain composed, observe, and refuse to react according to their strategy? They forfeit. The most effective way to counter manipulation isn't to confront it directly, but to disengage from their game entirely. I recall an instance with someone adept at twisting situations to their advantage. One day, they requested a favor that made me uncomfortable. I politely declined, but instead of accepting my decision, they sighed dramatically and said, "I thought we were closer than that." I immediately recognized the guilt tactic, the impulse to justify myself, but I paused and responded with a simple smile. "I know what you're doing." That one statement changed everything. Their demeanor shifted, revealing their exposure. They stuttered, attempting to dismiss it with a laugh, but I didn't engage further. That was the last time they attempted to manipulate me. Once manipulation is recognized, it loses its potency. So how does one handle such individuals? First, be aware of their tactics. If someone makes you feel guilty, pressured, or obligated, pause and evaluate. Is this a genuine request, or is it manipulation? Second, maintain a calm and steady demeanor. The more composed you are, the less leverage they have over you. Finally, refuse to participate in their game. You aren't required to justify yourself, debate, or prove anything. Simply decline and move on. Ultimately, manipulation is effective only when you react. The moment you cease engaging, stop justifying, and stop feeling responsible for another person's feelings, they lose their control. Master yourself, stand firm, and remember that your choices are solely your own. Another tactic employed by those who seek control is spreading falsehoods about you. Let's delve into this underhanded strategy, which people resort to when they realize they can't control you. Instead of confronting you directly, they concoct deceptive narratives, distort the truth, and try to turn others against you. They target your reputation because direct manipulation has failed. Their motive is to control, not to convey truth. False narratives are a weapon used by the weak. When individuals lack factual evidence, they turn to rumors, exaggerations, and outright fabrication. Their intent is to provoke you into reacting, defending yourself, or panicking. Once you do, they achieve their goal. You've been drawn into their manipulative game. Navigating the turbulent waters of interpersonal dynamics requires understanding subtle strategies, particularly when faced with manipulation. A critical skill lies in mastering the art of non-reaction, a concept analogous to weathering a storm of hurled accusations. Imagine someone launching a barrage of disparaging remarks. Engaging in a direct confrontation only serves to amplify the negativity, leaving you sullied in the process. However, by maintaining composure and allowing the baseless claims to dissipate, you emerge unscathed. This principle directly applies to handling misleading narratives. The more vehemently one attempts to refute falsehoods, the further the misinformation spreads. Conversely, steadfastly upholding one's integrity allows the mistruths to eventually dissolve, their impact diminished. This approach aligns perfectly with Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius wisely stated that remaining unaffected by slander constitutes a victory in itself. Consider the profound implications of this statement. Your restraint becomes your triumph. By detaching from the opinions of others, you strip them of their influence. Recognizing that authentic truth needs no elaborate defense, it inherently possesses its own persuasive power. I recall a situation where I was the target of deliberately fabricated rumors. Initially, my instinct was to defend myself, meticulously correcting each inaccuracy. However, I consciously resisted this impulse. Rather than reacting defensively, I concentrated on embodying my true self, allowing my actions to substantiate my character. Ultimately, the falsehoods lost their potency. As I disregarded the rumors, others began to recognize the authentic narrative. The originator of the slander eventually exposed their own deceitful nature, highlighting the ephemeral existence of lies compared to the enduring quality of truth. Effectively managing such situations requires a multifaceted approach. First, avoid direct engagement. Participating in arguments lends credibility to the inaccuracies. Second, let your character speak for itself. Truth, by its very nature, substantiates itself over time. Finally, remember that individuals who disseminate falsehoods expose their own flaws more than they reveal anything substantial about their targets. Ultimately, untrue statements carry no weight unless they are granted significance through attention. Therefore, stand firm, maintain composure, and observe as the truth naturally surfaces. Those who resort to dishonesty ultimately face defeat. Another manipulative tactic to be aware of is the exploitation of victimhood. Individuals may resort to playing the victim when they are unable to exert direct control over others. Rather than accepting responsibility for their actions, they invert the situation, portraying themselves as unjustly wronged and seeking sympathy from those around them. This manipulative strategy aims to control perceptions indirectly. It's important to understand that such behavior isn't about seeking justice, it's about evading accountability. These individuals distort facts, amplify situations, and present themselves as helpless to garner support and validation. Paradoxically, attempts to defend or explain only worsen the situation, casting you as the aggressor while they bask in undeserved sympathy. Picture a scenario where someone delivers an award-winning performance, cast as the innocent victim while portraying you as the villain. Stepping into the fray only makes you part of the charade. Rejecting involvement allows the audience to ultimately discern the truth. Those who feign victimhood thrive on reactions. Depriving them of this response removes their advantage. This resonates with Stoic wisdom. Epictetus once stated that a wise individual does not allow external forces to dictate their emotional state. Emotional control is essential. Succumbing to their manipulative performance grants them victory. Conversely, remaining calm, detached, and allowing time to unveil the truth dismantles their scheme. I once encountered an individual who consistently adopted a victimized persona when confronted. After repeated boundary violations, I asserted myself. Instead of acknowledging their behavior, they portrayed themselves as shocked and accused me of aggression, effectively transforming me into the antagonist. I initially felt compelled to defend myself, to articulate my perspective, but then I paused. I opted to let my conduct demonstrate my position. I refrained from engaging in arguments, offering explanations, or participating in their manipulative strategies. Interestingly, people started to discern the reality independently. Regardless of how vehemently someone portrays themselves as a victim, falsehoods eventually become apparent and genuine character inevitably emerges. So how should one navigate interactions with individuals of this nature? Firstly, avoid engagement. Engaging in disputes only serves to reinforce their narrative of your culpability. Secondly, allow their actions to expose their true nature. The more they fabricate, the more evident their deception becomes. Lastly, safeguard your personal energy. There is no necessity to validate your position. The truth possesses an inherent ability to reveal itself. Ultimately, manipulators utilize victimhood as a tool, but its effectiveness is contingent on your willingness to provide them with an audience. The most efficacious response is to maintain composure, remain silent, and permit reality to communicate for itself. Because ultimately, the truth invariably surpasses any fabricated performance. Number 4, they attempt to isolate you. Let's explore one of the most cunning techniques employed by those who seek to exert control: the attempt to isolate you. Instead of confronting you directly, they resort to behind-the-scenes tactics, sowing seeds of doubt, distorting events, and turning friends, colleagues, or even family members against you. The rationale behind this is their apprehension of your independence. If you possess robust relationships and a strong support system, their capacity to manipulate you is diminished. Consequently, their objective is straightforward: to sever your connections and induce feelings of loneliness. The reality is that isolation is a tactic employed by those lacking strength. Individuals who thrive on control are threatened by independent thought. Thus, they disseminate rumors, cultivate discord, and subtly sway those in your vicinity. Their intention is to erode your trust in others, undermine your self-worth, and ultimately render you dependent on them. The more isolated you become, the more susceptible you are to their influence. Consider a wolf pack in the wild. Predators isolate their target from the group before launching an attack. This is because a solitary prey is easier to subdue. Manipulators employ a similar strategy. They do not strike when you are surrounded by strong allies. Instead, they instigate conflict, create tension, and generate misunderstandings to distance you from those who provide support. However, once you recognize this tactic, you can outmaneuver them. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes relevant. Seneca advised, "Associate only with those who improve you. Avoid those who would pull you down." This is paramount. Surround yourself with individuals who uplift you, not those who seek to divide and manipulate. Authentic friends and allies will perceive the deception over time, and those who turn against you were never truly meant to be in your life. I once encountered someone who gradually endeavored to turn others against me. It began subtly, with discreet remarks like, "I'm not sure if you can really trust them." Subsequently came the exaggerations and the distortion of my statements. Initially, I felt frustration and the urge to confront them. However, I realized that the more I resisted, the more power I ceded to them. Therefore, I redirected my focus towards fortifying my genuine relationships. I remained consistent in my actions, allowing my character to overshadow their fabrications. As a result, people gradually began to recognize the truth independently. Those who genuinely cared remained, while those who succumbed to the lies were never truly meant to be part of my life. Therefore, how does one manage such individuals? First, remain calm. The more you react, the more ammunition you provide them. Second, cultivate authentic connections. Those who truly know you will not be easily deceived. And finally, do not give in. Avoid those who readily abandon you. If an individual is easily influenced to turn against you, release them. Ultimately, those who feel threatened by your self-reliance will attempt to isolate you, but they cannot undermine what is firmly established. Maintain your strength, nurture your connections, and bear in mind that authentic relationships do not crumble due to the falsehoods spread by others. Another tactic employed by those seeking to exert dominance involves challenging your self-assurance. Rather than directly attacking you, they subtly introduce seeds of uncertainty. They will question your judgments, prompting you to second-guess yourself and subtly eroding your capabilities. Their aim is to regain control by diminishing your belief in yourself. It is crucial to recognize that individuals who question your confidence are not offering constructive guidance or helpful criticism. They are assessing the strength of your self-belief. Their intention is to make you hesitate, seek their approval, and feel insecure about your choices. The more uncertain you become, the easier it is to manipulate you. Consider the analogy of a precarious bridge. Imagine walking across a bridge that appears sturdy, but someone nearby repeatedly questions its ability to support you, suggesting it might collapse. Initially, you feel confident, but as their remarks persist, you begin to doubt yourself, not because the bridge is inherently weak, but because they have instilled doubt within you. This is precisely how challenges to your confidence operate. Your reasoning is sound, but manipulators deliberately shake it. The key is to recognize their strategy and continue forward undeterred. Stoic philosophy offers wisdom in this regard. As Epictetus stated, an individual's worth is not determined by external validation. True confidence arises not from the agreement of others, but from trust in oneself. The moment you cease seeking external approval and stand firmly behind your decisions, you become unshakable. I recall a situation where someone consistently questioned my decisions, raising doubts about every choice I made. Initially, I felt compelled to explain and justify my decisions, attempting to demonstrate their validity. However, I realized that their questioning stemmed not from superior knowledge, but from a desire to undermine my self-assurance. Consequently, I ceased providing explanations. I simply affirmed my conviction with a resolute, "Yes, I am sure." This response was devoid of justification or debate. Stripped of the opportunity to sow doubt, they were rendered powerless. Confidence needs no defense. It stands unwavering. How, then, should you deal with such individuals? First, trust your own judgment. If you have made a decision based on sound reasoning and relevant experience, do not allow the doubts of others to sway you. Second, refrain from excessive explanation. The more you attempt to justify yourself, the more opportunities they will find to exploit vulnerabilities in your confidence. Finally, remember that doubt is their instrument, not your reality. The mere fact that someone questions you does not invalidate your position. Ultimately, your confidence is your strength. People may challenge it, test it, and attempt to weaken it, but only if you permit them to do so. Stand firm, trust in yourself, and never allow the doubts of others to become your own. Another common tactic involves emotional provocation. When individuals realize they cannot control you through logic or manipulation, they resort to pushing your emotional boundaries. They will utter words intended to frustrate, insult, or enrage you, not because they care about the substance of the argument, but because they seek to make you lose control. Once you react emotionally, they perceive themselves as victorious. Their objective is to elicit anger, enabling them to claim the moral high ground. They will employ tactics such as mockery and belittlement. People might deliberately twist your words, aiming to elicit a response. The instant you lose your cool, they'll swiftly shift the narrative, proclaiming, "See, I knew they were being unreasonable." Suddenly, you're painted as the villain, while they portray themselves as the victim, walking away with an air of innocence. Envision your emotions as a flame and the other person as the wind. The more you react, the more the fire intensifies. However, if you withhold fuel, the flame diminishes. Maintaining composure is therefore your most potent weapon. If they cannot provoke you, they are disarmed. This is where Stoic philosophy becomes relevant. Marcus Aurelius astutely observed that the ultimate revenge is to avoid mirroring your adversaries. The key is to resist reacting as they anticipate. When you remain composed in the face of deliberate goading, you strip them of their power. You retain command of the situation, leaving them feeling defeated rather than triumphant. I recall an occasion when someone attempted to lure me into an argument. They resorted to insults, exaggerated claims, and dredged up past errors, all in an attempt to stir my emotions. I could feel anger escalating within me, yet rather than snapping, I simply smiled and offered interesting perspective. Nothing more, no justifications, no defenses. The result, they were caught off guard. They were expecting a heated response. It was at that point that I understood that composure is not weakness, it is strength. So, how does one navigate interactions with individuals like this? First, recognize the game. If someone is intentionally trying to provoke you, pause and evaluate their motivation. Are they genuinely seeking a discussion, or do they merely desire a reaction? Second, govern your response. If you sense your emotions surging, take a moment to breathe deeply before speaking. Finally, disengage from unnecessary conflicts. Not every dispute warrants your energy. Some battles are won by choosing not to participate. Ultimately, your emotions are your own. If someone endeavors to provoke you, remain calm, remain detached, and allow their efforts to exhaust themselves. Ultimately, the most powerful person is invariably the one who refuses to be controlled. Let's now examine a tactic that is simultaneously exasperating and enlightening: imitation. Initially, when people begin to emulate you, it may appear coincidental. You make a daring move, and they mirror it with something similar. You introduce a novel concept, and they suddenly behave as though they conceived it first. Then it dawns on you that they are no longer competing, they are imitating. Here's the reality. If they are incapable of surpassing you, they will attempt to become you. Instead of forging their own path, they mimic yours, hoping to absorb your achievements without investing the necessary effort. However, here's the catch. Regardless of how closely they imitate, they will consistently lag behind. Mimicry may deceive some individuals temporarily, but it can never substitute authenticity. Consider the analogy of a shadow versus the sun. A shadow follows the movements of light, but it can never generate its own illumination. That's the essence of imitation, a lifeless replication of something genuine. Regardless of how diligently they strive to act like you, they can never replicate the intrinsic qualities that make you unique. Seneca, a pillar of Stoic philosophy, articulated that character, not replication, is what truly defines an individual. Your intrinsic worth is rooted in your essence, not merely in your actions. While others may mimic your words, emulate your style, or even borrow your ideas, they can never duplicate your intellect, your lived experiences, or your genuine self. I recall an acquaintance who mirrored nearly everything I undertook. Each time I achieved a milestone, they replicated my actions. If I embraced a fresh challenge, they suddenly developed an interest in the same pursuit. Initially, this was exasperating. It felt as though my efforts were being pilfered. However, I eventually realized a crucial point. The more they imitated, the more apparent it became that they lacked originality. One day, I deliberately altered my approach, adopting an entirely different strategy. Predictably, they were at a loss, unsure of how to proceed. This underscored the reality that constant imitation prevents genuine leadership. That instance taught me that imitation is, in fact, a testament to being a trailblazer. So how does one effectively manage those who engage in such mimicry? First, cease being concerned about them. The very act of copying signifies they are already lagging behind. Second, relentlessly evolve. The more you develop and progress, the more challenging it becomes for them to maintain the charade. Lastly, remember that imitation is not a form of praise. It is an indicator of insecurity. They imitate because they lack the self-assurance to be authentic. Ultimately, imitations fade, but originality endures. Continue to be yourself, continue to lead, and allow the imitators to struggle in their attempts to keep pace, because no one can ever truly replicate your unique qualities. Some individuals harbor a hidden desire to witness your failures. Let's address this uncomfortable truth. Some people feign support. They smile, acknowledge your ambitions, and even express superficial happiness for you. Yet deep down, they are anticipating your downfall, not your ascent. Your success serves as a challenge to them, and if they cannot surpass you, they would prefer to see you falter. The reality is that certain individuals are not genuinely cheering you on. They are merely keeping score. Their applause is not an endorsement of your capabilities. It is an anticipation of your missteps. And when you stumble, they will be the first to whisper, "I knew it." However, this is where their strategy falters. Authentic success is not contingent on their approval. Consider the analogy of a tree and a storm. A fragile tree succumbs to strong winds, whereas a deeply rooted tree remains steadfast, regardless of the storm's intensity. The individuals hoping for your failure are akin to the wind. They create noise, exert pressure, but they cannot break you unless you permit them to do so. The stronger your foundation, the less influential their opinions become. This is where Stoic wisdom proves invaluable. Epictetus advised against wasting energy on those who anticipate your demise. Your focus should be on personal development, not on disproving others. Success is not about demonstrating anything to them. It is about cultivating the best version of yourself. I once had an acquaintance who projected an image of support, but consistently made undermining remarks such as, "Are you certain this will work?" or "I hope you succeed, but we shall see." Initially, I disregarded these comments. However, as time progressed, I realized that they were not genuinely supportive. They were waiting for me to err. On one occasion, when I encountered a setback, they were quick to remind me, "See, I told you this wasn't easy." That was the moment I realized they never had faith in me. They were simply awaiting an opportunity to validate their doubts. Consequently, I ceased providing explanations and seeking validation. Concentrate on your path. My triumph followed. Their quiet disapproval was more telling than any insincere backing they offered. Confronting such individuals requires a strategy. Initially, identify the patterns. Are they present only during difficulties, vanishing when achievements occur? This is a key indicator. Next, cease the pursuit of validation. Your accomplishments are personal, not for external approval. Ultimately, allow your prosperity to communicate for you. Continue progressing and changing, as nothing frustrates detractors more than witnessing your ascension after they predicted your failure. Some individuals anticipate your setbacks for their amusement, so deny them that pleasure. Persist, excel, and ascend beyond their negativity.